Welcome to a really special podcast here. We're going to be doing something a little bit out of the ordinary. It's going to be a non-specific real estate topic here, but we're going to tie it back in, I think. I've got some guests here. I've got my wife, AnnMarie, and we've got Rosie Noel, a personality coach. And on this podcast, guys, we're going to be talking about the importance of understanding your personality type. We're going to be digging into some profiling and really start to break down like who you are, how to understand who you are, and why that even really matters, because it is a big deal. I didn't think it was when I first started doing some personality profiling. My wife teases me because I was very reluctant, I think might be the right word. I don't know what it was. We were talking about it a little bit. I think it felt like I was being violated a little or exposed or I don't know, maybe like not an individual anymore. But first, let's hear from Rosie. Rosie, why is it so critically important to understand who you are and how you show up in the world and why that makes a difference in business maybe and just in life in general?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use a very specific assessment to help people understand the things that they're naturally talented at. And so the way that the assessment defines talent is anything you naturally do, think, or feel that you can apply productively. And when you can understand your talents, like you, for example, Jerry, I'll use you. You are naturally talented at striking up a conversation with a stranger. You might not think of that as a talent, but when you can understand these things that you naturally do, if you are trying to raise capital in real estate or start a conversation with a seller, right, that you're trying to buy a home from, that feels natural to you. So you don't have to try very hard and you can apply it in different areas in business and relationships. So that's what I love about this specific personality strengths-based assessment is find out what am I naturally good at. And once you identify that, there's millions of applications that you can use it for and be really strategic about it.
So is the idea, accentuate those strengths and build on those strengths? Is there also a part of this where it's like, okay, the flip side of this is I have a whole bunch of weaknesses here and we need to maybe take a look at those or work on those? Is it that idea as well? Like build the strengths and then maybe work on some of the weaknesses?
Yes. I love this question because so many people think, oh, okay, Rosie, you focus on strengths. So it's just, is this a participation trophy? Yeah. Like we all have strengths. Nobody has weaknesses.
I would prefer to ignore the weaknesses. That's kind of my style. No.
That's
so a little bit true.
It's kind of a version of that. But just to describe that, it basically says traditional development says, focus on your weaknesses. You might be already good at some things. You're already good at those. Don't waste your time investing in those. Focus on your weaknesses. And the work that I do says do the opposite. So focus on growing your strengths. Think about Michael Jordan. If he would have focused on his weaknesses, he never would have been Michael Jordan. So focus on your natural talents and abilities and grow them into strengths. And with your weaknesses, you still have to manage to them. If something's getting in your way, then you absolutely have to create a strategy for what to do about that. But don't pour your energy in trying to be Michael Jordan and be the best golfer in the world, right? So grow. If there's something that you need that you don't have, can you borrow it from somebody else? Can you work from one of your strengths to help to manage your weakness? Or be honest with yourself and say, is this even something I need to do at all? Am I just feeling like I need to do this, but I actually don't?
That's great. And Rosie, you focus quite a bit in the real estate community because you work with Pace Morby, and Pace is a great friend of mine, and you work with a lot of his students on this personality coaching. And so you've probably gotten very familiar with like how real estate people think, and probably that lumps into business too, a certain type of way to think and how that's helpful. AnnMarie, something that AnnMarie does quite well is in the relationships and tying that in as well, and how understanding how to relate to your spouse and maybe even business partners, other people, how that can be very impactful. And you spend time working with our coaching students on a lot on that relationship. We do a couples retreat too, where we work with people that way. How does that roll over into business when you're really helping yourself understand your strengths and those that you're in close proximity to, your intimate relationships, even your kids? Like, how is it helpful to know other people's personalities and your own in that relationship?
Yeah, I think it's super valuable. And that's why I was so attracted to talking to Rosie and all the things that she knows about. But I think also some of the nervous system trauma training that I've done to understand these different frames that trigger our nervous system. And so being able to know your strengths and your weaknesses and how your weaknesses trigger you to not feel good enough and make it harder for you to really live in those strengths. And so you have to know what those are in order to be able to kind of confront the collusions or the dynamics within your partnership as, spouse, or your partnership within the business, or even your relationship to a deal, for example. So I help our coaching students to really be able to kind of face how much of this deal is, motivated by my ego, and how much am I perceiving what's going on from my strengths? Or can I see what's wrong with how I'm looking at it and look at somebody else and not have that be a threat to my sense of self, which is where the nervous system's going to get triggered and we make bad decisions, or we start doing things that aren't kind because we're in this like scarcity protective mode.
And
so
what do you mean
valuable
by that nervous system? So if someone's listening and they're like, what do you mean my nervous system?
Yeah,
Like my nerves, that go down my arm?
I mean, it really is just an organ that starts at the base of your brain and goes all the way through your body. And it's this organ that is there to take in sensory information from all around you and pull together a story. So the story that you have about yourself, and having a really clear version of what that is, and neutralizing the good and the bad, is really, really important, because that organ is going to be reflexive if you don't, if you're making it mean something specifically about your identity or your worth, instead of just knowing we all have strengths and weaknesses. So that's what we need Rosie for, to help us know what those are.
And so, Rosie, there's a handful of very popular personality profile assessments and testing that people can do. You gravitate towards one specifically that you specialize in, you've gotten really, really good at. Maybe talk on that a little bit, and why you find that the most helpful.
Yes. So I use Gallup's CliftonStrengths Assessment. A lot of people have heard of Gallup. They're a large consulting management company, and they do a ton of research. And so they created this assessment called CliftonStrengths about 50 years ago.
Oh, it's that old.
It used to be called StrengthsFinder.
Yes.
And
that's the book.
So I've read the
people
book.
know that, yes. And they rebranded it several years ago because it was created by somebody named Don Clifton. So now it's CliftonStrengths, but same thing.
Okay.
And what I love about it is, and the reason that I use it, so I come from a corporate background, and we used CliftonStrengths, we used DISC, we used a little bit of Myers-Briggs.
Okay.
So those, I'm mostly familiar with DISC and CliftonStrengths. I love CliftonStrengths because it goes so deep. There's 34 different talents that you can have.
That's a lot of talents.
It's a lot.
Nice.
And so I know we were talking just before we started filming about how nobody likes to be put in a box. And so when you have 34 different talents, the likelihood that you have the same combination of talents, just your first 5 talents in the same order, is 1 in 33 million. And so
we really are individuals.
Yes, people are very unique, and identifying, because it's not just about this, okay, this is my number one theme, this is what I'm good at all by itself. The combination of how they all work together, how our talents work together, are what make us unique. And so the reason I love CliftonStrengths, the main thing is, one, it's rooted in a lot of research. My background is, I used to be an actuary, so research, data, all of that's really important to me. So it's rooted in research, and it celebrates what's unique about us and allows us to use that to grow our superpowers. And the last thing I'll say is, I have a ton of energy. I learned about Ikigai. Are you familiar with that term, Ikigai?
No.
Never heard that.
So it's a Japanese concept that means reason for being. And it's the intersection of 4 things: what you love, what the world needs, what you can get paid for, and what you're good at.
Wow.
And I learned about it through my coaching training, and it resonated for me so much, because in the corporate space, I had all 3, but I was missing what I loved, and it felt so empty. And that was prior, when I was doing consulting, so prior to moving into coaching. And so what I love about Clifton Strengths is it's a tool that helps people identify what they're good at. And I kind of help them marry that with what they love. And I think that's really unique.
Is the
Yeah, I
idea
love
if you
that.
have all four, then you're living your genius, or you're in alignment with your life?
Yes,
Is that the idea?
that gives you a reason for being.
Why do they call it icky man? or icky guy? What'd you call it?
Yes, it's not icky and then guy. It's icky guy. It's a Japanese
Oh.
word. Yes.
I totally misunderstood that. I was like, is it creepy? Like somebody creepy or
People always yell at me like, Rosie, are you saying an icky guy?
an
I'm
icky
like,
guy?
no.
Okay, it's all one word and it's a Japanese word.
It's a Japanese
Oh,
word, yeah.
gotcha now. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yes, I love it.
I love those. Say those four again.
Yeah. So what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for.
Oh my gosh, you align those four and it's
Dream
home
life.
run. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
really great. And so are you saying that when you do the Clifton Strengths, the idea there is to take that and then mold that into those four so you're totally aligned in life?
Yes, essentially, I help people like at a baseline. Clifton Strengths helps you understand what you're good at, and then through coaching, I kind of help them understand. Well, where do you get energy? What do you love? How do you apply that to something you can make money doing? And also, yes, the world has to need what you do. If you just love it, it's just a passion.
That's fantastic. And
Love
so,
that.
yeah, I really like that. That's great. Yeah. So then when you're doing this coaching, is it helping people then come to this awareness? They take the test. It takes like a half an hour, right? And there's what, like 100 questions or so?
167.
Okay. So a lot of questions. And how do you navigate through, like you look at some of these questions and I'm like, I don't know. I could do this one. I could do this one. Am I being tricked right now? Like, if I say the wrong thing, is it going to misprofile me? What if it misprofiles me and then I live the wrong life because I have strengths that I don't actually have? Like, does it sort through all that because there's so many questions?
So the assessment asks 167 questions. It asks a lot of versions of the same questions, but gives you kind of a different spectrum for them. And so it's trying to not only understand frequency of are you tending to gravitate toward the same response multiple times? And also how intensely are you gravitating for them? Because there's a spectrum, right? Are you all the way over here on this? Or are you more closer to the center? And so there's that. But then because they're so research-based, they've done a ton of blind testing, retesting over a span of time. And the results don't change. So if they do blind testing, retesting over a couple of months, people are still getting the same answers.
That's so cool.
So there's that. And then there's also, they want to test your gut reaction. They time how long, I think you get 20 seconds,
20 seconds,
per question.
Oh, I kept getting you're taking too
Timing.
long.
And then it goes to a different question.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes people will email me and say like, oh my gosh, I missed 3 questions. Is that okay? Yes, it's okay. If you miss a lot, what I think is really cool about the assessment is if you time out on all of them, not all of them, on a lot of them, it actually can dictate some of what your strengths are. If you're really, it's like, oh, you're thinking a lot. You have these themes
You're an
higher.
analytic. You're an overthinker.
Yeah, so there's some objectivity to it, which I like. So I don't know if that helps some of the concerns that you have around it.
I think the point is they know what they're doing. Take the test, do the best you can. One thing that you told us was like, just go with your gut reaction, which is why there's the 20-second. The 20-second thing is training you to not overthink.
Correct.
Because in my mind, I'm thinking if I wait too long, it's going to time out. And I don't want it to time out. So just go.
Yes, exactly. But yes, they don't want you to, they want you to answer with things. It's measuring what's latent for you. And so if you're thinking, okay, my first reaction was to choose, I want to read a book over I want to go to the beach. They want you to choose that question, not say, well, I do like to go to the beach sometimes, especially in these scenarios. But if your first thought was to choose read a book, you should choose read a book.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
And can we put a link in the description for people that want to take the test, or how's that work? Is there a cost to it, or?
Yes. Yeah. The assessment is just under $60. And they do a couple of assessments. There's a $25 one that just gives you access to your top 5. I always recommend doing the full 34 because if you like it and you want to upgrade it, it costs even more money.
Yeah.
So just start with the full 34. It gives you a breakdown of what's high for you, what's low for you, and it gives you a really robust report that tells you, okay, your number one theme is belief. And if you met somebody else whose number one theme was belief, the way that they describe how yours looks is going to be customized because your number 6 is context and your number 34 is such and such. So it's a really cool report that says this is how these themes are likely to show up for you. So that's why I say just start with the $60 report because it's so robust.
And can I tell everybody what Pace told everybody?
Yes, absolutely.
About the $60?
I love the way he says it. Yes, please.
They said, if you can't pay $60 to take this test, you need to go look in the mirror and slap yourself. Is it something like that? That's how he said it, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, seriously though, it's $60
so
guys, and
important.
it'll give you so much insight into who you are. And the better you understand who you are, I think the number one step to any self-improvement is to have self-awareness. Like, how do you improve on your life if you aren't even willing to understand who you are and what makes you tick?
Yeah. And a lot of times people really don't want to, because they think it means that they're not good enough, that they don't have the strengths that maybe a parent validated or a teacher validated. And so it ends up healing a lot of childhood trauma to be able to go inward and be like, this is my strength. And it's okay that that's a weakness, because there's other people that have that strength where my weakness is. And that's where Rosie's really awesome. And that's where I'm curious to find out what our strengths and weaknesses are. And especially how they...
You want to tell all of YouTube?
Yeah. I'm willing to be a guinea pig for the greater good, which I'm sure is telling something about what my strengths are. But I think it's so important for us to be able, as we're trying to work together as a couple, to build a life together, to build a business together, to build a family together, to be able to hold on to and self-validate even more. These are my strengths. These are the things that I've been able to look at that give me energy. I love doing them. You love doing those things. I don't need to, feel guilty that I don't love to do the things that you love to do the same way that I do, and he's not valuing those. Like, as a couple, I think it brings a lot more mutual adoration, less judgment, and that's going to happen in a business as well. So important.
Yeah. One of the ideas that we have in our couples work we do is this idea that a lot of entrepreneurs, and I'm speaking probably primarily to men, it could go either way, but
it does go either way.
It goes either way, but a lot of the people I work with, at least, are men, maybe because they relate to me that way. But is this idea that, okay, I'm gonna hyper focus on building a business. It's going to be a sacrifice. It's going to be a lot of work, and I'm gonna put all this energy into building the business. And then while you're doing that, what's happening is you're neglecting the home and the family and the marriage. They sort of get a back seat. And then what I see a lot of men do is or either way, they lie to themselves and they say, well, of course they understand I'm doing this for them. Hey kids, I'm never around because I'm working so much, but I'm doing this for you. And I'm sure there's an element of truth to that, but at the end of the day, they don't really care that you're building a business, right? They want you, they want your presence, they want you to be there, and they want the relationship. And so we have this idea that we think is pretty legit, that if you can align in the home, and if your home isn't chaos, and if your relationships are intact, and you're building that marriage and the parenting and all those things at home, then that has a massive rollover into your effectiveness in the business, and not only in your overall happiness, but specifically you are going to do better in business if your home life is going well too.
Yeah, well, it's just, I think, accepting that there needs to be eyes on all the different areas. And that's what's going to create satiation. That's what's going to create balance. So male or female, it doesn't matter. Somebody tends to prefer to have their eye on the nucleus of the relationship and the inside of the family. And a lot of times somebody prefers to have their eyes on the outside and the protection mode. And it's learning to work together by not having this competition of what's really more important, the nucleus or the outside when we're talking about a family, or fighting over, no, it's more important to be strategic, or it's more important to be aggressive. And so you're not having this fight anymore over which one is better or worse. It turns into, we need both. And that it's going to have synergy on every area of your life when you really find some sort of value in all of it.
Yeah. And I think, what's great about personalities, and Rosie maybe talk on this a little bit, is, you in a marriage, at least, usually you marry your opposite, right? You marry your opposite.
Yes.
Did you find that too?
Yes. It's usually a yin and a yang in CliftonStrengths.
Right. Yeah. And people are like, I married my opposite. I'm like,
something's wrong here.
Join the club.
Yeah.
I've not met anybody who's not married their opposite.
Yeah. I remember when I made this list of like my perfect wife list, and I basically wrote down all the things that I like and I'm interested in, me.
It was like himself.
And I'm like, I'm going to find somebody.
Female version of him.
Yeah. I'm going to find somebody just like me. Well, that would be horrific. that would be a disaster if you did that, right? And so you want that complete opposite, and without even unknowingly, you attract to the opposite. And why is that? Like, innately, we know that we need to balance ourselves, right? So how does that work? And AnnMarie, I'd love your opinion on this too, but why is that important that there is that polarity, and how do we embrace that rather than fight that?
Well, maybe she can show us a little bit in how
in us,
in us, and give like a little example, and then
reach
out. Yeah, she's looked at our results, so
I know enough to be dangerous. Yes.
Okay,
because this would give the audience kind of an idea too of what kind of coaching and what kind of value she brings to being able to understand my strengths, his strengths, how we overlap, where there could be superpowers. I think you use that in helping people build teams and in their business,
hiring
also.
And all the things, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So
100%.
Are you willing to be?
Yeah, for sure.
To get exposed?
Yeah, I'm okay to be exposed.
So let me say, before I give you a little overview, I think there's a couple things you said that are helpful. With CliftonStrengths, they talk about a journey, right? And it's a journey. There's 34 themes. The first time people look at the report, they say, oh my gosh, what is this? I'm so overwhelmed. Yeah. And it's a journey because they call the journey name it, claim it, aim it. So the first piece is awareness. What does this word mean? Your number one theme is belief. What does it mean to be high belief? I can't remember what your number one theme is, but your number 5 is self-assurance. Well, what does that mean in CliftonStrengths jargon? And then the claim it is, okay, I understand what it means. And now I embrace, like, this is who I am. And then the aim it piece is, that's all fine and wonderful, but what do I do with that? And that's why it's so helpful in relationships, whether it's an intimate relationship, it's relationships with your team, with your business, or relationships with others, right? That can be a business, teammates, or just other personal relationships. So it has so many applications. And so that's what I love about CliftonStrengths is it's not just nice to know information, it's also very applicable. So now to transition to you two. So with CliftonStrengths, there's 4 domains, and I think it's easy to break it down just to start with these 4.
Yeah, the 4 is the what?
Yes, it just simplifies things. Yes. So there's 4 different colors that go with it. There's influencing is orange, which is what you are, Jerry. You lead with the influencing domain. Everybody leads with one domain. You lead with influencing. You lead with strategic thinking. That's green. And then there's 2 more. Executing is purple. Relationship building is blue. And all of the 34 themes fit into one of these 4 domains. Usually people have 2 to 4 of these colors represented in their top 10. But regardless, everybody leads with one. So the fact that you lead with influencing, that means when you go to have a conversation, to solve a problem, encounter any circumstance, the first thing you're probably going to think or do is, how do I elevate this? How do I make this bigger? How do I lift this person up? That's the nature of influencing. How do I lift this idea up? You lead with strategic thinking. So somebody that leads with strategic thinking is going to say, how does this fit into what I already know? How does this relate to an existing concept? Or I need to process this a little bit further before I do anything with it, right? So your first thought is to go. Her first thought is to think, right?
Yeah. You see the polarity already. Brakes and gas.
Yes. And it's funny because, so I know you have activator in your top 5. Activators, like, let's go. Pace Morby's number 1 is activator. I think it's your 2 or 3. And so activators, like, why are we still talking about this? Let's go. Let's do this, right? And in your top 5 is intellection, which is the slowest of the 34 themes. And that's, we need to think about this. Like, let me marinate on this a little bit more. Like, this is big. Let's wait before we go. And so it's funny because the orange and the green is the fastest and the slowest. And then you, in the individual themes, you have the fastest and the slowest. So I in my experience, in business partnerships and in relationships, intimate and otherwise, when green and orange can work together, they represent things very holistically. Because orange is very
balance. It's both.
Yes, it's fast and it's people's focused, and green is slow and it's outcomes focused. And so they're really, they can go like this, right? But with work, they're a really beautiful combination, and they kind of create, they create a natural balance. So I think it's really cool to see. And in the limited time that I've gotten to know the 2 of you, I've definitely seen the difference, but how you harmonize with each other really well in them.
Yeah.
Well, that's really fascinating. One time, a couple years ago, I met with our banker, and I was sitting down with him, and he said, "You are a very unique entrepreneur that I've worked with, lots of entrepreneurs." He's like, because you seem to like bring all this money in the front door, and somehow your wife keeps it from all going out the back door. Because he sees a lot of the like where that's not working that way. And that's one thing, like finance, but it was really interesting because it sort of plays on that gas and brakes idea that AnnMarie used. And what I love about this, Rosie, is the more you understand that, the more I understand me and how it relates to her, then the more we can work on the overcoming the conflict side of that and more on the unity and alignment of that. Because I love that you said that could be something that could create some conflict and some friction, or it could be a beautiful, magical thing when it's aligned.
100%.
And so the work now is like, how do we align?
When it's valued too is really, because everything, I think one of my higher ones is context, that I do understand things or think about things in a lot of ways relative to the
what's going on,
other thing or the opposite thing. And when you think about masculine and feminine energy and the kind of attraction that comes, or the North Pole and a South Pole, or the context of we can't feel hot water until we've felt cold water, or vice versa, that when it's really not better or worse, you look at a car, the car literally can't move forward without gas and brakes. And so that would be really bad if you had a vehicle that was just driving recklessly wherever. And
you'll
there was
either
no
crash or not go anywhere.
Right.
One of the two.
And it would be my inclination to go really slow. That's so true. So in a lot of ways, I look at it for our children and being able to experience a life with the frames of slow and fast, and being able to experience both of them for them to be able to kind of grasp onto, well, what's the kind of life experience that I want to cultivate that each generation going forward would be more balanced.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is fast. So hopefully we've got you excited about wanting to understand yourself better, how that relates to your business and your family and all the areas of your life that are important. Rosie, what would be the next step for somebody if they want to learn more about this? They can take the test, right? And if they want to get some coaching from you, because what you're really good about doing is take the test, let's look at the results, and now let's apply this to your life. Let's see where this fits in. Let's see how this can be impactful for you to be the icky guy.
The icky man, the icky woman, whatever you prefer.
To be icky. So can we put a link maybe in the description below the video where they could find out more about how to do that? Is that something you do? You work with people to help them really align this?
Yes, absolutely. So I do one-on-one coaching. I also do group coaching.
Great.
So it kind of depends on what people are looking for. The number one thing, and even in this conversation, that I want people to take away from the concept of strengths is that it's neither good nor bad. If you look at your assessment results and you have a spouse who has the similar results to you, it doesn't mean you don't work together, right? It means that you have to be strategic about how you do it. Similarly, in your own profile, you might see it and look at it and say, oh no, this isn't what I should have because of what my job is. And that's also not the case. So it's neither good nor bad. They're all neutral. What makes it good or bad is in how you use it. And so that's what I do in my coaching, whether it's one-on-one or group coaching, is to see how can you use this to get at the outcomes that you're looking for? Should you use it differently? Maybe if something's getting in your way, maybe you're overusing your activator and you need to start pulling in your self-assurance to balance it out better.
So none of it's good or bad. It just is.
It just
and
is.
you need to learn how to accentuate that in your life and
Exactly.
your relationships. I love that because no one's destined to fail, right? Like you're not, oh no, there's no hope.
Yeah.
There's always hope. You just have to learn how to align that.
Yeah, that's
And so we're going to put those links below for you guys. And definitely, Rosie, let's have you back on. We'd love for you to maybe do some more work with our coaching students and things. AnnMarie, for people that want to really maybe focus on aligning like for you that are couples, but aligning that relationship and the home. If you guys don't know, we have 10 kids. We live between two different places. We call it Home Inc. because it's an entire operation, just our home life outside of business. But for people to get some better ideas on how to align maybe that marriage and home and parenting with business to make that kind of work a little better, what's something they can do?
Yeah, so we have a couples retreat. We can put the link where to sign up for that. We do some YouTube lives where we talk about that. So we can put the link down below.
Once a week, typically, we try to. Yeah. And it's you and I talking not about real estate.
Not about the real estate things, but really, about that our biggest thing in the coaching that we do, whether it's business or couples, is first belonging to self and belonging to others. And so it's so valuable to know who you are. It's so valuable to know also how your nervous system is going to react. So it is really valuable to keep these things neutral and to be able to work together as a family, even understanding your children and what their strengths are, how we don't shame them over what their strengths are. We build them up for weaknesses and look at how we do all these things. What are the SOPs that we can do to be able as a family to support each other's strengths, have everybody working in the realm that does bring them the most fulfillment and that they're the best at overall. So there's lots of ways to be able to look at these as a couple and within a family experience.
Yeah, powerful. Well, thank you. So guys, leave a comment if you have any questions or if there's anything that, please share with us what's resonated with this video, or if we've brought maybe some different awareness to you. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you again, Rosie. Thank you, AnnMarie. We sure appreciate you, and we'll see you guys on the next video.
So fun.